Thank you for joining us for our monthly webinar series from Local Market Monitor, where we take a closer look at this month's National Economic Outlook, which was written by Local Market Monitor's founder, Ingo Winzer. For those of you that don't know Ingo, he has been analyzing real estate markets for over 30 years and is a graduate of MIT and Boston University. He is not your typical economist and has a knack for taking complex data and extracting what is important and providing unique insights and tangible guidance on real estate markets. So with that, I bring you Ingo and his insights on the economy.
Thanks very much, Carolyn. Every month, we look at the latest economic data to see what they can tell us about real estate markets and where they might be headed. Our underlying premise is that you make better investment decisions when you have a better idea of the economic forces that affect supply and demand. Today, we're going to talk more about the national economy, which has been performing better than expected, but which might be at a dangerous tipping point. But let's first look at the job situation. Here's a picture of the economy represented by the growth of jobs, the increase in jobs each month compared to the same month of the previous year. The political hoopla or hand-wringing that accompanies the monthly estimates of jobs added, which yo-yo up and down, obscure the actual trends of job growth, which is why it's best to ignore the monthly news flashes. The picture we see here is of an economy where the rate at which jobs are being added is steadily slowing down to just under 2% in October. The high rate of job growth earlier this year and throughout 2022 was due to the recovery of pandemic jobs, not new economic growth. And it's likely that the rate of growth will continue to slow in the future. Looking at the major sectors of the economy, we can see some interesting trends. In manufacturing, the first thing to see is the drop to almost zero growth in October, mainly due to the auto workers' strike. Striking workers are not counted as employed, so we'll see a reversal next month as that strike is resolved. But automakers are no longer a big part of the economy, so the trend of slower growth won't change very much. Construction has been one of the bright spots of the economy despite high interest rates. That's partly because of infrastructure spending, which depends on government funds, and partly because of a surge of home construction, both single-family and apartments, in response to high interest rates. But behind these numbers is a possible major cause for concern. We see here that home builders were rapidly expanding their operations until about the beginning of 2023, but have radically changed course since then, and recently have been cutting their workforce. To me, this means they're responding to a lack of demand, and this could be the beginning of a general slide in home prices. The finance sector is adding jobs at a slower rate. And the retail sector is adding almost no jobs at all. The healthcare sector is currently the strongest part of the economy, adding jobs at a very high 4% annual rate. This won't continue, though, because much of the recent growth is just restaffing at nursing homes. Even at a lower level of growth, however, longer-term prospects for this sector are very good because of the aging of the US population and the built-in disconnect between using healthcare services and paying for them, which encourages expensive treatments. Restaurants are another large sector of the economy adding jobs at a high rate right now, but the trend towards slower growth is unmistakable, and in the next year will probably settle near 1%. The situation in the large government sector is similar. Historically, government jobs increase less than 1% a year, and that's what we'll see in 2024. The most disturbing part of the economy right now is the business services sector, one of the largest, where the current rate of job growth is down to 1%. Because this sector provides the services that all businesses need, it's usually our most accurate measure of real business activity. Part of the slowdown in business services is due to the fact that companies are cutting temporary workers, which usually happens when demand for their products or services is weak. I've laid out a scenario where the economy isn't really growing very well, where companies are shedding workers, where home builders are pulling back, and the real rate of growth, once jobs lost during the pandemic are recovered, is no better than 1% a year. In other words, a very vulnerable economy. But another measure of growth, gross domestic product, tells a different story. Here we see, adjusted for inflation, the growth of GDP each quarter compared to the same quarter of the previous year. The recent trend is up, and to a level that now equals growth before the pandemic. Most of the recent growth of GDP comes from consumer spending, which has been much higher than expected in the face of inflation and small income gains for most Americans. This is the worrying part, because of the likelihood that recent consumer spending is strong mainly because of high home prices, which make homeowners feel richer. Here's what the recent surge in home prices looks like. The increase each quarter compared to the same quarter of the previous year. In a lot of markets, home prices today are 50% higher than 2 years ago. If those high home prices hold, if homeowners really are richer and can keep spending, the economy will keep going. But if this is just another bubble that will burst, we can already see the trend. New home price data come out later this month. If home prices actually go into the red because of weak demand, as the home builder data suggests, homeowners will quickly change their spending habits. If home prices keep falling in 2024, the very vulnerable US economy could be back in a recession. That's it. In this time of uncertainty, when some markets will do well, but many won't, it's important for professionals to stay on top of local economic and real estate pressures. Local Market Monitor provides the data and analysis they need with local market reports and Investors Metro analysis. Thanks very much for following along. This is our National Economic Outlook. I'm Ingo Windsor.